This is a quick video on tracing a form using a couple techniques, such as using tracing paper and also using a rubbing. And this is what I would do if I wanted to transfer a design or a motif from one page to another. So this works for drawing, this works for making patterns, and so this has a lot of different applications. So this is a useful skill to have if for some reason you can't use the computer and you want to learn how to do this by hand. I want to start with tracing paper. Say you want to repeat this design on another paper. There's a couple ways you can go about this. One thing I might do is draw this in either ink or graphite. I'm drawing it with ink now because I think I'll see it a little bit better. If I want to replicate this G without it flipping or reversing, I would draw it first, and then on the back side, I would either take my pencil or other graphite material. Here I have just a graphite pencil. This is the same stuff that's inside your pencils. So I can go and do this. And then I can take this over to my design area. So I've kind of blocked out a border. And maybe I'll start from the top left-hand corner, because if I'm transferring graphite, this might get kind of messy really quickly. So I can go back over it in pencil. You want to use something that's relatively firm. So I like pencil or even colored pencils. With colored pencils, I can kind of might be able to see it a little bit differently. So go back over. If you want to just go over the contours of the edge of your shape, that's one way to go about this. And you can hold this down with your hand and check to make sure this doesn't move, just in case you do need to retrace anything. And so sometimes it comes out a little bit light like this. So let me try again. And so in instances like this, you might just have to go back and draw it on yourself, but I can go back with the graphite as many times as I need. And so with this, you can begin to make a pattern by going back and doing this over and over again. So maybe I want to have this continue to repeat in a line. You can use a ruler, or you can pre-draw guides or a grid for an underlying structure. I try not to press too hard, because sometimes if you press with a lot of pressure, then it leaves an indent in the paper. And sometimes I find that distracting in a final design. So I want just enough pressure to transfer the graphite. And I'll do this one more time just to show what I do. Okay, kind of eyeballing this. Okay, so right now I have 3 Gs. Now, if you don't have, this is technically a vellum paper, which is similar to tracing paper, just a little bit thicker. So if you find with tracing paper over time, if you press in really hard, it starts to disintegrate a little bit. So you might need to do this, repeat the shape on your tracing paper a couple times if you find that the tracing paper begins to fall apart or break down or stretch. So another thing is with the tracing paper is whether the rotation matters or not. You can also just use straight up graphite. So I had traced this form here in graphite, and I can go ahead and take what I have drawn and flip that over. Let's see, I'm gonna stick this here. And you can go back over it in pencil or colored pencil or ballpoint pen, something that is firm. But you don't want to like scratch this up too much. There are some people in some videos who just like cover tracings like this with graphite, and I find sometimes that transfers too much in if you're doing a pattern like this. So I try to just stick with drawing over only the drawn area rather than scribbling across everything. But that has its uses as well, especially for larger images. Or if this was really complex, you might just go ahead and scribble on it rather than retrace everything. But this is simple enough. So that looks good. Maybe I'll do that one more time and just hope there's enough graphite left. So a little bit. So I would suggest lightly going over this in pencil. Just enough to give you an idea of where you want to draw. You don't want to really grind in the paper. This also works with materials that like colored pencil and crayons. However, I find if you have a project where you're going to be inking back on top of it later, if you have something waxy, it might repel your ink. So that's why I suggest, if you can, sticking with graphite if you're limited on materials. There's other transfer papers and carbon papers you can also use. So here I'm creating a combination of a regular pattern and a little bit of an alternating pattern. I can go back and trace back over these to finalize my design and fill in anywhere I want to color or fill in the values. The one last method I want to show is if you don't have tracing paper, what you can do. Pretty similar with your drawing on, maybe you might want to cut it to the size of your design so it's easier to see. This I recommend more for like if you're transferring an entire drawing rather than something like this, because you can't exactly see through this. So if you do something like this, I'd recommend making it small enough. Although something like this with a tab to like hold it down might actually be helpful. So let's see how that goes. And sometimes you can go back, or if you have just a pencil, you can cross-hatch by going in a couple different directions. This is where if you have a regular graphite pencil rather than mechanical pencil, if you sharpen it with an X-Acto knife, you can use it on its side, and that works perfectly for that. So I have the graphite on the back, and then I can trace this here. Let's see. I'm going to use colored pencil again. And this time I'm just going around the edges, and I can ink it in later. And if you go outside the lines, hopefully it's not too big of a deal, but you want to go slow enough, especially if you do have a design that calls for being very exact. So let's take a look. So remember, just kind of hold it down. You can also tape your designs down if you don't want it to move or budge while you're tracing. So if I want to check it without moving it, so I always hold down the paper, check it. If it's good, then I make it freeze. I hope that going over these 3 methods is helpful for you. There's more methods out there, of course, but these are just enough to get you started with the basics.